Hey everyone, John Doyle from OptixEQ here. I'm getting ready to talk about the Sam Davis this weekend at Tampa with my buddies, Emily Gullikson and Ron Ricciuti, who's the Tampa guy. He does our notes, and that's why he's important addition to this edition. So we're really excited. It looks like a very tough race, very complicated. You could look at the plot there. There's a lot of contention. Look at all those horses and numbers and circles and squares all on top of one another. It's going to be interesting. It's also challenging because you got horses that are going from 2 to 3, and they're coming off layoffs, a lot of folks, 2 months, 3 months. So it's going to be interesting how these horses show up. So what we wanted to do is kind of look at that plot, try to figure something out, do a horse-by-horse analysis of it, because really, I think there's a couple of horses that may stand out, but from an exotic standpoint, it's just basically anyone could hit the try of a super, in my opinion, in this race. So it's an interesting race. So, Emily, what do you think about the early pace scenario?
Yeah, I mean, I think the plot gives a good representation. It kind of matches up with the Optics RPM, which is the run style match. You can see the high number of horses that have that EP style. So it shows a lot of horses that do their best running on or near the lead. Now, we do have kind of a lower speed rate, which doesn't necessarily always set up for closers, even when you have some contention. So having a horse that can be close to the pace could get a trip in this scenario. But I think as we go through kind of horse by horse, and especially with the surface distance changes, layoffs, the plot is plotting a lot of these horses that have run a 1-turn mile kind of in the mix, and then that changes a little bit around 2 turns. So there's some subtle aspects to the pace, and we'll kind of go through a little bit more when we do the horse by horse.
And that a lot of them are coming off a layoff, so it might be a bit dated, the information as well. So
Ron, what about the 13? Anything about the? I mean, is that horse coming off the A? Is going to be AE, right? He's an AE right now.
yeah,
He's off. Does he add some contention to the space?
definitely adds pace to the race. Definitely adds contention, especially from that far outside post. He's going to have to get over. Likes to be on the front. This is his first time at a route, so.
Yeah,
he's going to have to get some position, I think.
let's look at the horses. Let's go to grid, because I think the 2 and the 13 are the speed horses in this race, and especially from the inside post, I think the 1's got to go. So it's going to be interesting. Let's just break it down horse by horse, and we'll start with Mr. Rum Runner coming out of the Macho Man, and that was at Gulfstream. So it's the first time he's going to run at Tampa. Looks like a horse that's kind of on the improve. What do you guys think, Emily?
Well, one thing I noticed about this horse, just from a physical standpoint, he's kind of on the smaller side, and he's one of these kind of upright runners. So the fact that you have a horse like this, just as far as his physicality and drawn on the rail, and where he's had the most success, where he's been on or near the lead, I think his hand is really forced in this race to kind of go from the inside, especially with all that pace. I mean, pace drawn directly to his outside and the others in this field. So I just don't really see any edge for him where he would probably maybe have an upgrade with the pace advantage, because class and speed, even though you mentioned he's slightly on the improve, still would need another move forward. So just a little bit light on those factors. He'd need that pace advantage to carry, and I don't think he's going to have it here.
Ron?
The only thing I would have to add is that I really would have liked to have seen him run a lot better in that Mucho Macho Man.
Okay. The only thing I'll say about him, when I look at, especially if we're talking about a race that's going to be contentious, I like to see a horse that duels and still runs well. And he's had duel in 2 of his races. So he looks like a horse that, like I said, looks like on the improve. I agree with what everyone said here. But again, another horse that, maybe he hits the board, maybe he hangs around for a piece. That's about the best. I don't see him on the win end either. I don't think either of you do. Number 2 is Unpredictable Bay. Got a perfect trip, breaking his maiden at Churchill, and been kind of laid off. And he's another horse that looks like he's stretching out. Mostly he's done 1 turn with his career. Well, I should say early in his career at Arlington and Indianapolis, he was in Indiana. He was doing 2-turn races now, but now mostly 1 turn. Looks more like a sprinter type, but another horse that's kind of got improving figures. Emily, what do you think?
I think this is just a tougher spot to make a seasonal debut for a horse like this, and with this pace scenario, that just doesn't help him. I did notice the barn seems to be doing well this meet, coming off a layoff, so I think that's worth a mention. But overall, as an individual, I think this is a tough spot for this horse to come back in, and especially on the win end.
Anything to add, Ron?
Just that, Leparoux wasn't that optimistic to come to Tampa to ride this horse.
You talk to him?
No, I didn't talk to him, but the last 3 that he's run, and he's run well with blinkers and Leparoux.
That's good. That's good.
Oh, I will say, will add one more thing.
I
That
just
race-
don't know, Alonso Quinones is a good local rider. He's okay, but he's not, well,
Yeah.
people aren't that fond of Leparoux, so.
The one thing I did want to add, because he got the B+ in his maiden win, is that race has not been a productive race. That November 27th Churchill Downs race.
That's good point. That's good information. Yeah, okay.
The route at Churchill was okay, though.
Yeah, the one turn again. So
Yeah.
pace contention. The 3, I
Yes.
think we're going to find to be interesting. I think. So, what do you think?
Well-
Ron, you want to start? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. He's the favorite. He should be the favorite. 3 races, all competitive. 2 graded stakes where he's on the board, and he just looks like the type. This 3 or 4 horse start coming in here to start the season, and you certainly wouldn't be surprised if he won, and he's one of the contenders here.
Emily.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's legitimate. I mean, he checks the boxes. He's fast enough. He's got a favorable running style. He has the class. He has the foundation. He has that key race he's coming out of. He is coming off a little bit of a layoff. Was able to catch some of his works. He looks good. I mean, just a good conditioned horse, very athletic, very much a 2-turn type route horse that has some class to him. So all around looks legitimate and as the favorite.
Yeah, and so the Kentucky race, the one Emily says key race. So we had the Fairgrounds. I forget what's the Fairgrounds Lecomte winner come out of that race, and also last week's Holy Bull winner came out of that race. So just talk about key races. That one looks pretty good. Okay, the 4. I think we got a little bit of difference of opinion in the team on this one. Golden Glider. Emily, you start this time, I guess.
Well, I mean, his debut, as it's noted in the Optics notes, was a B+. It's a better than look race. Just had a ton of issues and just was so much the best in there. Showed a ton of class, and then he came back and won in his second start. And he does have that surface and distance experience. The one knock, or I guess there's almost kind of maybe 2-3 knocks, are those slogs, breaking slow. He is catching a fuller field for the first time, so you have to kind of put those factors into play. I mean, last time out, he was just much the best in a more compact field, so he's able to overcome that slow start. A bigger field, more competitive race, that could be a bit of a challenge. And then the other factor, and I think Ron will bring this up, just in terms of speed figures, he's been a little bit too consistent maybe in those first 2 starts, so does have to improve. Those are just factors you have to kind of keep in mind in terms of value.
Ron?
Yeah, he definitely has to improve. But with only 2 races under his belt, I'm sure he could make a move forward. I'm just more concerned about the Optics fig range in both of those races. They look weak to me.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I would say in this horse's favor is that he's going to get a fast pace. Now I don't know if that's going to, like you said, sometimes these fast pace, these races, these fields get stretched and they may be too far back. But if you get that, if the race bunches up, he could be one of those horses come running late. Believe me, this horse is not a win contender for me, but a 3rd or a 4th is a possibility at a big price.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if I should pre-fill bunch now, given that plot for all these horses.
I don't know.
That cluster is something else.
I don't know. Like I said, it's all how these horses come out of their layoffs. It's going to be because some of them are really working. All right, number 5, God of Love, Ron.
One of the positives for him is that he's fresh. He's this what?
Oh, they're all fresh.
Well, no. I'm saying like he's had a race this year so far.
Oh, you're talking about the 4, right?
The 4.
Has
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
To the 5. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh, the 5, no.
I agree with you on that one. Sorry about that.
No, most of them are coming in off long layoffs, or, extend more.
Yeah,
than
I mean, it's
and
actually, it is a good point, the fact that the 4 is, he's the only horse in here that's run at Tampa.
Yeah. So I like I said, I wouldn't fault anyone. So the 5 God of Love, Ron?
Not for me.
No.
No, I don't like him trying this surface for the first time against these, and the plot is he's going to be far back, and I don't think that's where you want to be, regardless of how fast it is up front. I mean, on these big days, they suit these tracks up, so this is not the one for me.
Emily, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously watching this horse at Woodbine, I think that's probably the circuit where this horse belongs. They're probably thinking, Queen's Play for him. Woodbine opens in April, so getting this horse a start, getting him a race, just kind of seeing where he is. If he runs well, maybe they could take this path. But I think that probably a prep race, is a deep closer, does have a different surface. We did look up the Gray Stakes just to kind of see the race strength, and there is a couple horses that came back out of that race, both finished second, but did earn kind of solid optics figures and grades. So kind of remains to be seen. My overall opinion is probably a prep, and kind of see where he's at going forward.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's 4 races, but also the kind of bad, good
Oh, figures. Yeah.
pattern that's starting to develop there.
Yeah, I wouldn't read too early to tell, but yeah, it could be because like the other thing about this horse form is 2-year-old form, so we don't know what this horse looks like now.
Well, look, you have a grade 3 winner, and let's see what he's all about. He's a 3-year-old. Why not?
Yeah,
send him
okay,
down,
but grade that's not really a grade 3 in the States. Let's face it, Canada's grade 3s in graded stakes races are not on par with the US. That's for sure. That's a fact.
No.
Okay, that's a fact. All right, so trademark. Emily, you start this one, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the horse that has kind of steadily improved. He's improved with racing. He's coming out of a strong race. That allowance race on November 27th has been a productive race. Does have those recent Bs. Has been a little bit, as we can see in the most recent race, flow aided. I think that was probably a taxing effort. So coming back off the layoff, giving this horse a little bit of recovery. I think just kind of overall, this is a horse I kind of look at more for underneath. Maybe needs a race. Maybe one of these horses that kind of races himself into shape would have to take a move forward in order to win, and then have to kind of get his trip where he has been a little bit more effective, close up to the pace. So what I'm going to be kind of more using for underneath at a price.
Yep.
Yeah, he's also on my underneath list. I like the versatility in the run style, right? I mean, he didn't win in the race at Keeneland, and it was a sprint, but he's shown that he has interest in also coming from off of it. So look, I don't think he's going to get the lead here, and that's the way he's won the first 2 times, the 2 wins. But you never know. But yes, I would use him underneath.
Make it big. That's what we got to do. Make it big. Last race, Remington Park, hasn't been seen since then. 3 races, 3 wins, all the same optics fig. Ron?
Hard to knock because of the 3 wins. Needs to grow up, to compete with these guys. The slog is concerning, right? He's going to come from off of it as well. So who knows what's going to happen there in the middle of the field trying to get to that first turn. I don't like the morning line on this horse. I think it's way too low.
Yeah, you get what is the morning line? Don't have it up here yet.
I believe he's 9-2.
9-2.
You got Ortiz.
I have him around 12 or 15. So yeah, I think this one will be overlaid. I don't recommend using.
Emily, you got any opinion on this horse?
Yeah, I mean, kind of the same thing. I mean, there's absolutely no value at 9-2. I mean, he does have that perfect record, but it is a case of facing inferior company, getting favorable trips. The slow starts are problematic, especially as the competition gets tougher. The lack of progress, race to race in terms of speed figures also a little bit concerning. So there's really no edge for this horse in this race. You know, maybe you could get creative at a bigger price, but it just doesn't seem to be there today.
Yeah, John, the only positive I really had for him is that, you know, Safi's pretty good with these, with the layoffs of this, in this range, 25% wins, and it's a good sample size. So, I mean, that was really all I could
For graded stakes. I mean, this
No,
is a
not-
different monster than when you're in starter
Well,
allowance.
yeah, no, I
mining
mean, but
company.
that's, you know, it's 518 races, so I understand though, definitely. But, you know, look, he doesn't have the problem that Barker and Williams have in this race, which is they've never even won a graded stakes.
To me, you know, I mean, it's all about getting the right horse. You know, some trainers never, you know, get one horse in their career, but they win because the horse is right and he's fitting in the right time at the right place and all the rest. And that's what I look at. Ship stational. Can I talk about this horse? Because
Yeah.
you know,
Please.
yeah. So this horse is this is a nice horse. And you can see, you know, he kind of dominates on speed, at least from our perspective on speed figures. But notice the optics fig range this horse runs. He's been in races that are far inferior than today's optics fig range. He's been running against state breds. He's a nice horse. He plots beautifully. He's, you know, he's coming off a layoff. Now, when we go to look at his workouts, his raw workouts, they look sensational. You know, it looks like they brought him over here early, you know, in December. They took a little bit of a break, and then from the January 9th through just right up until 6-7 days ago, this horse has just been working steadily and nice and really good workouts. Emily and I talked a little about this horse. It's like, you know, they probably targeted this race, but never anticipated the field size or the competition that they're going to, you know, face. I don't know what to do with this horse. He's a nice horse, but again, this is the first time he's going to be 2 turns. This is the first time he's going to run against this competition. But if he's like anywhere 5-6-1, I got to use him with that kind of plot. I mean, I really do, because he's a horse that could sit and close. And so he's a use for me, but you know, it's all going to be about the price. What is he on the morning line, guys? Anything?
6.
6. Okay. If he's around there above, he's okay for me.
Absolutely, it's 6. I think fair value for him is 4.
Emily,
He is the fastest here, you know.
what's your fair? Yeah, but again, you know, this is again going 1 turn versus 2 turns versus this is the longest he's ever been. You know, he's, you know, those other races were against inferior competition. So
It is. I love the plot as well, and the fact that, you know, he can be and has shown that he can be a little versatile.
Emily, what do you think?
As far as what, fair odds?
Yeah.
I'm kind of with you with 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna shoot over the number 9 Howling Time. This is another horse that comes out of that key race, Emily, that we talked about, the Kentucky, whatever that is, Jockey Club, whatever it is. He ran a disappointing 5th. He had no finish in that race.
But that was a change in tactics.
Change in tactics. He's a horse that was coming more off the pace than he was on the pace that day. So, yeah, I mean, the interesting thing for me on this horse, it's a Romans. Oh, what did I do here?
Arizona.
So, the joy of the beautiful Arizona. I'm not used to dealing with this. This is not my computer, so bear with me, folks. Okay, we're back in. Sorry about that. So the one thing I noticed about this horse, though, is Talamo came in to ride this horse. Now, Romans had a horse that ran in the Holy Bull that Talamo also rode, but he didn't make the journey in. He does for this horse. I thought that was mildly interesting. Anybody have any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that is an important thing to note. The other thing I'm kind of looking at this horse a little bit more, and this just kind of jumped out at me because of that no finish, and because he had that kind of declining speed figure pattern is, you know, and Roman's not necessarily a trainer that wins on debut. That horse kind of regressed a little bit from the debut and from that second start. You know, it's kind of a lot to do. So coming in fresh for a horse that runs well fresh, kind of his faster race is fresh. Could be a good sign. I watched a few of his works over at Gulfstream Park. He's kind of a different type of build. I think he looks more like a European turf style horse where he's, very much a route build, but doesn't carry a lot of weight. It's just sort of the individual that he is. So I kind of just like that aspect of his form cycle. The morning line is 5, which I think is probably, maybe a little bit short, but it seems kind of like one of those horses that it could be overlooked in here and could be almost twice that.
Anything to add, Ron?
I think if he runs back to that street sense, he has a chance in here. But I would prefer him underneath.
Okay. 10, Volcanic. This is an interesting horse. I know Emily's got an opinion about this horse. I'll let her lead on this one because I know there's things about this horse
Well, I mean, I didn't, just looking at his first 3 races, obviously they were a little hopeful to run in a graded stakes race with a maiden, but just kind of like some slower speed figures and not a lot of progression in his first 3 starts. He comes off the layoff at Gulfstream Park and obviously pops that big figure and big effort. We have a B+, best of the speed, a strong 93. But I kind of think it was a speed figure that was just kind of a little bit inflated, just kind of by the way the race shape kind of played out with the top 2 speed horses kind of separating a little bit, and just kind of looks like a horse to me at this point where I think a lot of people will see, the blinkers added, the light bulb going on and all those types of things, where he could get a lot of attention in this race, maybe a little bit baited off the 12-1 morning line, people kind of thinking they're going to get a long shot. And it's just a horse that he has to prove it. And with the race shape today, as we talk about the contention and how he won last out as the best of the speed, just could be a little bit against it. One of those horses that I think just might be an underlay.
Okay.
Yeah, I agreed with that, all of that.
Okay, cool. The 11 is Strike Hard, and I know Ron wants to talk about this horse. This horse, could be a little toppish for me, but I'm just curious to hear what you see. Nothing wrong with this horse. He's done nothing but improve. But
I have some knocks on him, so we can
Yeah.
I'll let Ron go first.
Yeah, I'll start with the positive, I guess, that I feel out of, and again, they reminding me that the races that he's been involved with have been 1 turn, and this is his first time around 2 turns, but he's one of the only ones that has
second time.
Correct. Didn't run very well at Churchill. However, he is the only one who has, more than 4 or 5 of these races have a very fast late race shape, and I think that's going to be important here. To have that experience that you have to keep going here. So I like him. He would be one of my contenders, along with the 3 and the 8.
Emily, you have a different opinion on this horse, I think.
Yeah, I do. I mean,
Right.
I put a lot of weight, especially in graded stakes races, on class, and just from kind of the eye test, he looks a little bit below. I think a lot of his races have been flattered based on kind of the race shape, softer fields, compact fields, and when he's in that Rocky Stakes at Churchill Downs, I mean, just from an eye test, he just doesn't look on the same level as those other horses. And I think that's going to come into play here. Not only is it going to be the 2-turn race, but he is going to be taking on tougher horses and off those races where he has maybe been a little bit flattered just based on the competition. And to John's point, even though he does have a little bit of a break, it is a 42-day break, but kind of looks like he could be a little bit over the top pairing up those 96s in those most recent starts.
Okay. So we got like 1 for and 1 against a little bit there on the number 11.
Those last 2 were when they added blinkers too. So he has improved there.
So, I typically, I bring this up a lot because it's true. So when a horse wins, on average, they improve 8 Optix fig points for a sprinter and 6 for a router. So when I look at this horse, he's not going to be a 104 for sure. That's kind of the way I look at this. And so I just think, oh, maybe he runs another 96. That's my concern with this horse. Just like when he ran the 92 off the big effort, I just see a regression. I know people don't subscribe to like a bounce there, but there's these horses only can run as fast as they're capable of running, and it does have an impact on them. There's no doubt, especially when the competition changes and the track changes and the configuration changes. It's lots of changes. So 12, Kitten Mischief. What do you guys think about this? Horse running well both times he's run. 1 turn miles, 1 off the turf at Aqueduct, and then came right back versus winners around another good race second. Any opinion on the 12?
Yeah, I think he's a kind of a game horse. Puts himself in the race and just kind of runs. Kind of got that quality kind of racehorse to him. Just mentally, from a physical standpoint, that might catch up with them at some point. He does look a little bit more on the turfy side. You can obviously see that's where they intended to run him on debut. He has that characteristic. He did sit well behind horses at Gulfstream Park, so I don't think it's necessarily like a kickback type issue. Just kind of by his action, he's a little bit kind of high knee action, kind of when you watch him run, a little bit of paddle on that left front. So I just think from maybe that perspective, that does catch up with him from that point. But he is kind of a good kind of mental horse where he does want to race.
That style though, I think does well at Tampa. I think horses run well with that kind of style on the dirt at Tampa. Sometimes I've seen that. I'm trying to think of more recently, a horse that actually won this race was kind of a turfy horse, and I can't lose me right now. But yeah, that's interesting. Ron, anything?
I think that relatively speaking, I think Tampa's a little tiring there at the end. So I think that could be part of the reason that you see that.
Okay.
For this horse, I don't have anything yet. He really hasn't done anything wrong. That the allowance that he comes out of was okay. It wasn't anything. Certainly, the OFR is okay. Yeah, and the works have been good at pacing.
All right. So this
I'd rather have Saez than Franco, but
Franco's a good rider.
Yeah. Well, I'll take Louis.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes too. I mean, if Louis Saez is already committed to a horse that's sort of Derby aspirations, I think it's a good time to try to find another rider if you're not going to get him in the big game.
Yeah,
and Thomas uses him a lot, I believe.
And Franco coming in from New York, he kind of might feel that this horse has some ability. Okay, Little Vic is the sprinter that looks like if he draws in, it's going to be a pace factor, but he's going to have to do something, a lot of things for the first time. 2 turns, this track, layoff. Both races that he's done well in, he's been lone. He's not going to be lone. If he's lone, he's going to have to go real hard and sustain it for 2 turns. So it's a tough.
He does break a little bit slow. As well. He was in compact fields and he has that natural early speed, but he does break a little bit slow.
Yeah. And they're going to be aggressive with him, obviously, with Lopez. I mean, whatever. He breaks slow, whatever, they're going for the lead because I think that's going to be the only shot, especially from that post. That horse can't sit and do something.
No.
So.
I mean, he's really fast. Like, he's naturally fast. I mean, that last race, he ran, he finished second, but My Prankster came back and won the Swale, right? So he, which is another good sprinter. So he's quick. I mean, he's a very fast horse.
That's why
this is a tough spot.
That's why if he draws in, I think he does affect the race because he puts like the 1, the 2, and lots of the others into a chase mode, and that's not necessarily good for them. So you want a horse that can be able to stalk a little bit more and finish, and so. I think if he gets in, I really downgrade the 1 and the 2 in this race, but we'll see. Well, we'll see if he does get in and who comes out. That's going to be a big factor. Anything else about this one, Ron?
Maybe Breeders' Cup Sprint later on this
year.
Breeders' Cup Sprint.
Wow, you must be high on this horse.
No, I'm not that high on him.
Yeah,
He's
that's
fast, you know, I just don't know. Look, again, this is like with the other one, right? Give it a shot, right? He hasn't done anything wrong. See if he can stretch out, if he can, and wins this race with this contention and this cluster to begin with, then he's pretty good. I think we'll have to admit it then, right?
You know, this is the way this race is like the way the Kentucky Derby used to be. Used to have horses like this in the Kentucky Derby. That's why you had long shots. You notice, like, since they went to the qualifying, it's been pretty formful, right?
Yeah, song and a prayer.
Yeah. You know, it's been-
I actually looked at this race the way I've been kind of thinking about, you know, the Baffert horses who kind of have run the faster races at this point, if as it sits right now, they're unable to compete. I kind of feel like this is the way that the Derby will look this year.
oh,
You know, where you kind of have that contested pace, maybe you have a horse or two that tends to stand out above the others, but also maybe some of these horses get a trip, and, you know, I don't know. I just kind of got that kind of vibe from this
That
type of
vibe, yeah.
race.
I hope so. It's been kind of boring lately. I'd be honest.
20 horse center cluster is what we're gonna get. Good
All
luck.
right, so what's the play? How would you approach this race if you're playing this race? I'll start with you, Ron. How you gonna approach this race?
For me, you know, I think I would go with some verticals, maybe some tries and superfectas, and 3, 8, and 11 would be my top spot.
Okay.
And then I think it was 1.
But the 3, 8, and 11 are going to be the favorites, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah, I don't
You
think
use them all in the top spot.
I prefer the 3 and the 8.
Okay, and then there's like, I mean, you know, typically what I do is if I see
Good.
if I see a horse, like if I think the favorite has the legitimate shot to run first or second, then I'm looking for a horse that's at least 10 to 1 or better to get into the mix, or I wouldn't be betting to try. Is that what you're thinking? Is there a 10 to 1 or better shot that you think is that
For
kind of horse?
to get into the try?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to key around the favorite, right? You want to try. Look, I mean, like, let's say the favorite's 5 to 2, 2 to 1. You may say, hey, I want a better win price in a field, you know, bulky field like this. So instead of getting a win price, you know, I'm going to play a trifecta maybe to improve that. And so typically, you know, if I'm doing that, I'm looking for a horse that's going to be a price, because if you play the 3 favorites, it's probably not worth it. So who's that long shot for you that we might be looking for?
Good question. I haven't settled on that one yet.
Emily, do you have one? I mean, do you have like a 10, you know, like 10 to 1?
Well, yeah, I mean, going back to what you're saying, kind of your logic is really when it comes down to not necessarily just trying to hit the trifecta, but you're trying to actually like make money and be a little bit clever. So a couple of the horses I'd be looking to get out of the second spot would be the 7. What I'm not going to use that could be a short price in this race, and then looking for horses that could kind of sneak away. So, I mean, I think the 9, I would use in like a 1-2 spot, because that horse could maybe win. He could be, you know, any type. I think Classic Causeway is legit. He's a first and second type use with that horse. And then as far as underneath, I would use the 4, you know, the 8 being logical, but the 6 is a horse that we talked about, and the 12 for kind of underneath. And again, trying to get maybe, you know, I'm not as high on the 11, the 7, I'm trying to see if there's in the 10, if the 10 ends up getting a lot of attention, that would be a sort of an easy fade as well.
So, but both of you are saying the 3 looks legitimate as the favorite, and you just got to kind of play around it and try to get some value in some of these other runners if you want to.
Yeah,
go.
the 12 would be my long shot.
Okay. Cool. Okay, good. I see the race similar, and I think some of the horses that you mentioned, like the 6 and the 12 are interesting to me from a price play. So I think we're pretty much in agreement. So that's the long way to get to the favorite in the Tampa Bay Sam F. Davis on Saturday. Thanks for everyone for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Good luck.